All right, everybody, back again. We're going to run through amendments 11 through 27. Remember, for the test Friday, you only really have to focus on the ones from the worksheet, which are your Civil War amendments and amendments 19 and 26 dealing with voting. However, I would be doing you a large disservice by not educating you on the other amendments. So, rolling forward, 11th Amendment. This one deals kind of back to the idea of state sovereignty, that states have a right to exist without, being interfered with by other states. Um, kind of been a few interpretations of this amendment, and it's not as relevant today. But the big idea with this one was citizens of another state or country can't sue another state in the United States. And the idea behind that was so that individuals could not be suing other state governments of other states, and kind of weakening them by tying them up with all these court cases. Again, this one not really super relevant to our discussions right now. 12th Amendment, interesting amendment. So this basically says, in that electoral college process where, today we have 538 electors, you all know you need 270 electoral votes to win. If that does not happen, it actually goes to the House of Representatives, who will elect the president from the top three candidates. So each of them will get a one vote, and it's kind of the winner. Whoever gets a majority will win. It's only happened twice in our history. The first you see on the left there, that's Thomas Jefferson. That happened in 1800. He was running against John Adams. And the second time it happened was 1824. And this is John Quincy Adams, son of John Adams, son of the second president. He beat out Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson actually returned 4 years later to beat him, though. Kind of fun stories that we'll look at later in the year. So amendments 13, 14, and 15 are your Civil War amendments. 13 outlawed slavery in the United States. You already learned about that. So no person could own another person in this country anymore. Easy way to remember these in order, though, is 13 prohibited slavery, 14 gave former slaves citizenship, guaranteed them equal protection under the law. So, the laws had to help protect those people too, because they were citizens now, and also guaranteed due process of the law. So that means if you needed help from the law, or if you were facing troubles with the law, you got the same rights as everybody else who was citizens, white people, basically at that time. And then Amendment 15 stated that a person's race, in essence, cannot be a reason to keep them from voting. Again, this was to ensure, 13 gave us an end to slavery, 14 to find citizenship for these former slaves, and Amendment 15 gave former slaves the right to vote because they were citizens. That one we'll learn about throughout the year, though, was not enforced well, and most black men in the South were not able to vote. 16th Amendment came at the turn of the 20th century, and Congress basically now at that point had the right to tax people's income. We call that income tax. Depending how much you make in this country, that can be anywhere from zero if you don't make really any money, or very little money, all the way up to, I think the highest tax bracket is around half. And there's all sorts of different rules with that, but prior to this time in our history, taxes came from other means. A lot of them were on goods such as alcohol, tobacco, things like that. 17th Amendment. We didn't talk about this a whole lot with Article 1, but the way it used to work was our state legislatures would actually elect the 2 U.S. senators for our state. So our representatives in Springfield actually used to elect our 2 U.S. senators. That all changed with the 17th Amendment, where the people, got to elect their own senators. So when I go to the ballot in November, I'll have a choice between the incumbent junior senator, Senator Mark Kirk. He's a Republican, or I could choose to vote for Tammy Duckworth, who's running against him on the Democratic ticket. Or I could not vote at all. I will vote, though, and I'll make a good, educated vote. Not to jump around, but Amendments 18 and 21 are tied together. These are kind of easy to remember because 21 is the age you need to be to drink alcohol legally in this country. And 18 is kind of easy number to remember because age of 18 you kind of get other rights in this country. 18th Amendment prohibited the sale and consumption of alcohol in this country. So for a period of time it was illegal to drink or produce or sell alcohol. Americans changed their mind about that though after several years, and they repealed that amendment, and alcohol was once again legal. 19th Amendment, this one's important. This gave women the right to vote. Prior to that, it was often left up to the states, and women were often left out of the vote. We call this women's suffrage, and in this sense, that spelling of suffrage is a good thing. So, yay, women's suffrage. 20th Amendment, we call this the lame duck amendment. The way it used to be is, and we see this today with President Obama, usually the president's last year in office, particularly their last few months, they're kind of thought of this as like a lame duck time. And lame duck in short means like, they're still sitting in the seat, but they don't have a lot of power, especially after the November election. It's kind of bad form for the president to make a whole lot of changes right before he or she leaves office. The president now takes office on January 20th. It used to be later in the spring, so that lame duck period, instead of being from November to January, used to be from November to March. So it used to be a long period where we'd have kind of a weak president, a lame duck president as we called it. So basically this amendment just shortened that period so we could have a stronger executive in office. We already talked about 21st Amendment. Remember, that was repealing prohibition. 22nd Amendment, this limited the president to 2 terms in office or a 10-year maximum. Remember, if somebody became president, if they were a former vice president or another official who, in essence, finished out the last 2 years or less of another president's term, then they can still be reelected twice for a total of 8 years. Now, if you serve more than 2 years of another president's term, you can only be reelected 1 time. So, 10 years maximum. 23rd Amendment, you see these are the Electoral College results from 2012 when Obama was running for re-election and Mitt Romney was challenging him. Big thing you need to know here, though, is D.C. got 3 electoral votes with the 23rd Amendment. This happened way, way, way before Obama and Romney are facing off, but this just shows you that D.C. gets 3 delegates in this electoral college process, the same as the very small populated states in the country. They do not get any representation though in the Senate or in the House of Representatives. 24th Amendment, this came out during the Civil Rights era when African Americans were struggling for equality. Basically, even though the 15th Amendment said blacks had the right to vote, many southern states and local governments in the South were blocking them by charging a poll tax. So what this poll tax meant was you had to pay to vote. And this was cost prohibitive for poor African Americans living in the South. You can see this one from 1948, $1.50. Obviously, if you were worried about where your groceries were coming from that week, you probably weren't going to fork out some money to go vote. So that was kind of their the racist Southern way of kind of not letting black people vote. So, 24th Amendment fixed that. 25th Amendment, kind of complicated, but this basically discusses 2 ways to announce presidential disability and how to fill that seat. So if the president does become disabled, the vice president would become the president. That new president, the former vice, would pick a vice president, and both houses would have to approve that vice presidential pick. There's two ways for disability to be announced. If the president knows he or she is becoming disabled, they can, in writing, contact the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem and let them know. Or if they're not all with it, or they don't want to admit that they're disabled, the vice president, a majority of the cabinet, or a majority of Congress can write to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tem and basically declare the president disabled. Kind of a long shot thing, but again, they wanted to make sure that there were clear lines drawn if the president was no longer fit to do the job. 26th Amendment, this came out after the Vietnam War, during the Vietnam War. This basically gave 18-year-olds the right to vote. 18-year-old men were getting drafted to go fight the war in Vietnam. So the old theory was old enough to fight, old enough to vote. Makes sense. And lastly, the 27th Amendment basically stated that Congress can vote to give themselves a raise. Remember, bills dealing with raising money have to start in the House, but both houses would vote on this. But any congressional pay raises cannot go into effect until the next session of Congress. So basically, you cannot, as a congressman, vote yourself a raise like day 2 on the job. So that's the rest of your amendments. Hope you enjoyed. Study hard.